welcome back to a new video, and in this one I wanted to take a look at the Madness engine as developed by Slightly Mad Studios and its performance across various titles that it's been used in VR. And the reason I wanted to do this is because the Madness engine, one of its strengths has always been its VR implementation. It's since the first Project Cars title been lauded as a great engine for VR and works extremely well in VR. And we basically, in this generation of Sims, have 4 titles that are using the Madness engine. So you've got the original Project Cars, Project Cars 2, Project Cars 3, and of course, not developed by Slightly Mad Studios, but using the Madness engine, we've got the Razer-developed Automobilista 2. I wanted to take a look at these because certainly the 2 most recent releases on there you've got, which is AMS2 and Project Cars 3, both of them boast class-leading VR implementation. So I thought it'd be interesting to just go back and have a look at all 4 of these titles and see where we are with this. So first one I wanted to start off with is effectively where it began, the Project Cars the original. Now when we're running Project Cars the original in VR, it's a really nice clean implementation of it. The anti-aliasing works extremely well in this. It looks very, very clean. I mean, you've got to keep in mind that what you're seeing on the screen right now and what you actually see in the VR headset is always going to differ, so you're not going to get an exact one-to-one. This is always going to look a bit cleaner because you don't have a screen a couple of centimeters away from your eyes, so screen dooring, pixels and stuff like that, you're not going to pick up on it on a second screen recording, but the comparable quality does come across reasonably well. And the original Project Cars in VR, it being heralded as a benchmark in terms of VR, was absolutely correct because it does look incredibly good. It stands up very well. I mean, I've wanted to use the same car here, same track and roughly the same conditions, so that's effectively what I've done with regard to that. Formula Juniors in all of them, Brands Hatch, but its performance stands up whether you're using single car, you're in a race, or you've got rain going on. It just looks really good right the way across the board, and it performs really well right the way across the board. We then move on to Project Cars 2. Now, Project Cars 2 upped the scale of what's going on in terms of the title as a whole. And, oh, by the way, one thing, for some reason my Formula Junior and Project Cars 2 appears to have had its audio replaced with that of some kind of EV. I don't know why. Well, actually I do suspect I know why. I installed a load of mod cars, so I think something's gone wrong there, so I'm going to have to disable all of the mods and do a file integrity check on them, which will be fun, but there we go. But yeah, in terms of how it performs, you've got more going on under the hood in terms of physics for Project Cars 2. That's unquestionable in comparison to the first one. They did up their physics game, not leaps and bounds, but there were incremental steps. And to keep things running smoothly, it does seem as though you've got some compromise in the visuals. And we can see this in the fact that it's not quite as clean and sharp and detailed as it was on the original Project Cars. It still looks extremely good. Good colour rendition with very little banding across the sky there, which is why I wanted to go for the clear skies as much as possible. You've still got some of the nice little touches like mirror movement and things like that. You've still got the pedal movement as your foot comes on and off the pedal. There is noticeably more jagglies going on as the anti-aliasing isn't quite performing as well as it did on the original Project Cars to keep the same frame rate and the same overall quality. And you can see this a little bit mainly around some of the catch fencing as you go down the start finish straight, and in some of the sand traps and gravel runoff areas. But overall, it's not a massive downgrade in visual quality for the increase you got in the actual physics fidelity in it, and it comes across as a nice compromise. It really does. I know some people don't like the physics of Project Cars 2 or the Project Cars series as a whole, but quite frankly, that's an aside. What we're looking at here is in terms of visuals versus fidelity, Project Cars 2 strikes a really nice balance in my mind. It looks good in VR, it performs well in VR, and it's got that slight improvement in terms of the physics over the original, so it's a compromise worth having. If you just want it for looks alone in VR, go for the original Project Cars. If you want that nice balance between the two and the greater amount of content, Project Cars 2 does extremely well, and again, it's still one of the better VR implementations out there by quite a way. We then move over to Project Cars 3, and, well, it's not awful, I'll be perfectly honest with you. It's got weirdly both a noticeably softer image to it, but also got a lot more jagglies on there, as though the anti-aliasing, particularly around the Armco, the catch fencing, and the gravel traps. It's noticeably more jaggly. You also see a lot more shadow crawlers. The shadows aren't popping in and implementing quite as well. You've got a completely different colour palette here. It's almost like there's an entirely different filtering system going on. You've got all that really bright, colourful look that is there with Project Cars 3, and it's an integral part of the brand of this particular version of it. Now, I've said a lot about the physics of Project Cars 3 in the past, and I'm not going to change my views on that. I don't believe the physics is underneath the physics is as good, because it's still the Madness engine, but I don't personally believe it's offering that same level of fidelity, and I think a lot of it is watered down and has some filtering elements of some sort going on top of it. And I don't know if it's been implementing that's caused the performance to take a hit. Now, don't get me wrong, it's still a good VR implementation, without a shadow of a doubt, but it's not as good as Project Cars 2, and it's certainly not as good as the original Project Cars. But it's still not bad at all. It looks good. One of the advantages the Project Cars series have always had is, you might hear that, it's thunder and lightning here. One of the things that the Project Cars series has always had is the VR implementation is extremely easy to get up and running. There are very, very, very few hoops to jump through. Lots of the options are fairly sensible and straightforward to get it running, so that's always been a strong positive. But for me, Project Cars 3 doesn't quite have the detail or the fidelity as 1 and 2 in VR. It's got that softer image, but weirdly also seems to have more jagglies in there, where you've got continuous lines and things like the Armco, as I say. And then we look at the kind of outlier here, which is Automobilista 2. Now, one thing just to quickly point out, the Formula Junior in Automobilista 2 isn't running slick tyres, as it is in all the Project Cars titles. Project Cars titles are Formula Fords in a US spec running slicks, whereas the one that Razer appears to have gone for in Automobilista 2 is running semi-slick tyres. Not quite the road tyres that tend to get run in Europe in Formula Fords, but a kind of a halfway house, so performance-wise it's a lot slower than the slick-shod ones of Project Cars. But in terms of its VR implementation, it's kind of halfway, in my personal view, it's kind of halfway between Project Cars and Project Cars 2. It's not quite as crisp and clear as Project Cars, the original. It's kind of starting to get a little bit of the jagglies in that you see in Project Cars 2. Not quite as bad, but they're certainly there. But in terms of the colour rendition, the lack of banding in the sky and things like that, it's up there with the original project cars. Now this is quite impressive considering the fact that Razer are pushing the physics engine in terms of the Madness engine as well, the physics side of it. So what they've managed to implement here, I actually think, is they've taken the Madness engine's VR side of things and they've really used it well. Again, it implements very well, it's very easy to set up. In fact, there's virtually nothing you need to do to get it set up, and it does work extremely well from that point of view. And if I had to pick one of the bunch in terms of performing best, it would be still the original Project Cars. But if it came down to which one gives you that best balance of VR performance and also the improvements in the physics engine, and that best compromise between them, I'd be hard pushed to pick between Project Cars 2 and Automobilista 2. But if I really was pushed on it, I would have to say that I think Automobilista 2 is the one that nails it. But that doesn't surprise me massively. It's the one that's still being worked on, it's still being developed now, whereas Project Cars 2, its development roadmap finished years ago now. So for me, the best implementation of the Madness engine in VR is Automobilista 2. Just, and it's still being worked on, so it may well improve from that perspective. But overall, I think what's worth pointing out and highlighting here is just how well the Madness engine does in terms of VR implementation, and that's something you can't really knock it for. Regardless of your thoughts on the physics side of things, the implementation of VR in it as a series is extremely well done and works extremely well. It's easy to get set up and running and gives you good results for your money and your system, so to speak. So that's my thoughts on the Madness engine and its implementation in VR across the 4 titles that use it. Let me know what your thoughts are on this down below, and if you've enjoyed this video, please do hit the like button, and if you want to see more content like this, please do subscribe to the channel and hit the bell icon to be notified when new content gets uploaded. Thanks very much, take care.